Most men waste their strength in noise, in alliances, in endless conversation, thinking that closeness breeds power. Fools. True power demands separation. If you wish to become untouchable, unpredictable, and unbreakable, you must learn the art of isolation, not as weakness, but as the crucible where dominance is forged. Come closer, then take a step back. Observe the world not as a man desperate for belonging, but as a strategist above it. In this theater of vanity and false brotherhood, the powerful are not those surrounded by crowds, but those who stand deliberately apart. Isolation, when wielded with purpose, does not weaken a man. It sharpens him. It kills the need for approval, trains the eye to see without sentiment, and births the kind of focus that turns ambition into empire. Today, I shall reveal the most misunderstood weapon in the arsenal of the powerful, the strategic withdrawal. Not in fear, but in preparation for conquest. They say man is a social animal, but I say the more a man craves company, the more he reveals his own poverty of mind. Look around you. How many powerful minds are drowned in the noise of constant connection? How many kings fell because they couldn't sit alone in silence? Here lies the paradox of dominance to lead others. You must first conquer yourself, and that conquest begins in isolation. Do you know why most men never rise above mediocrity? Because they fear being alone with their thoughts. They chase distraction like dogs, bark for approval, howl when ignored. They do not think. They echo. They do not know themselves. They outsource their identity to the crowd. But the mind, unbothered by applause or insult, becomes a fortress. Julius Caesar, before he crossed the Rubicon, spent years in strategic retreat, studying rhetoric, mastering law, learning where men break. Napoleon, he studied in self-imposed exile. When others wasted youth on revelry, he obsessed over maps, battles, and psychology. And you? What do you do in your solitude? Do you use it, or escape from it? Let me tell you a secret of rulersense. Isolation is not loneliness. It is refinement. In solitude, a man becomes intimate with his own mind. He notices the invisible strings that pull the world. Was the lie. He hears the whispers of motive, sees the lies behind smiles. In the absence of distraction, he becomes dangerous. Not because he acts, but because he understands. Think of the lion. He does not hunt in packs. He walks alone, observes, waits, then strikes without hesitation. So why are you still begging the herd for direction? You believe that being surrounded by people makes you valuable. But you are only surrounded because they want something. Not your brilliance, your attention, your labor, your submission. You cannot lead what you depend on. The man who trains his mind in solitude becomes unpredictable. He's not chained by the trends, the gossip, or the need to be liked. His thoughts cut deeper, move faster. He becomes the other in the room. The one whose silence unnerves the talkative. The one whose presence shifts the atmosphere without saying a word. In a world of echoes, be an original voice. But first, be willing to speak only to yourself. Now let me press deeper. There is a hidden advantage to isolation. Emotional detachment. When you spend time alone, you begin to separate your feelings from your actions. You become less reactive, less fragile. You watch as others crumble under insult or flattery, while you remain unmoved. Why? Because you've already argued with your own demons. Because you've heard every voice in your own mind and silenced them. So when a rival mocks you, he's late to the war. You already conquered that battlefield in solitude. This is why the powerful often seem cold. It is not cruelty. It is clarity. You do not owe warmth to those who would weaken you. Think of a manipulator, a true one. He does not attack with fury. He observes, waits, says little. He knows that the more you speak, the more you reveal. And what gives him this power? Stillness, focus, solitude. So I ask Yug, do you want to be remembered? Or merely liked? Because the path to legacy is paved in quiet preparation. Read the lives of great conquerors, philosophers, and tyrants alike. Their most transformative moments were forged in withdrawal, exile, reflection. The crowd teaches you how to obey. Solitude teaches you how to rule. And yet most fear it. Why? Because it reveals who they truly are. But if you can endure that mirror, if you can look into the abyss of your own mind and not flinch, you will walk into the world 10 times more dangerous than the man who needed company to feel alive. This is the truth no one will sell Yug. Isolation is not the absence of power, it is its incubation. Withdraw to study, withdraw to sharpen, withdraw to ascend, and when you return, return like a blade no one saw being forged. You see, the world fears the man it cannot predict, and there is nothing more unpredictable than the one who thinks in silence. But if isolation builds the mind, what happens when that mind begins to see through everyone else? We move next to the second truth of power, perception born from distance. And once you understand it, you'll never see people the same way again. To rule others, you must first see them, not as they present themselves, but as they are. And to do that, you must step away. You cannot study the chessboard while you are tangled in the game. You cannot decode manipulation while your ego is still being flattered. Detachment is not retreat. It is elevation. Ask yourself, how many times have you acted emotionally only to regret it later? How often have you reacted instead of observed? The man entangled in emotions is blind. But the man who learns to detach, he becomes the predator in a room full of prey. When you are too close, everything blurs. People's words confuse you. Their smiles deceive you. Their pain pulls your empathy like a leash. But from a distance, everything sharpens. You see how they move when they think no one is watching. You notice the micro-expression behind the compliment. You catch the hesitation in their voice, the subtle signal of fear, envy, or deceit. Detachment turns your mind into a blade. It is not heartlessness. It is precision. Think of spies. The greatest intelligence agents in history never screamed their way into power. They listened. Silently. Coldly. They sat back while others exposed their secrets, believing they were in control of the conversation. The detached observer holds the ultimate advantage. He lets the world speak first. Have you ever seen a manipulator bait someone with silence? They let their target fill the air with words, and in doing so, they gather everything. Insecurities, desires, patterns, all without revealing a single piece of their own mind. This is perception born from distance. Consider Marcus Aurelius, an emperor with the power to crush kingdoms. Yet what made him terrifying wasn't his army, it was his ability to stay emotionally unmoved, even in betrayal. While his enemies raged or begged, he listened, measured, and acted only when the time was right. Why? Because he did not need to be liked. He needed to understand. That is the shift. Detach yourself from the need to feel in order to see. Let the others drown in sentiment. Let them argue, whine, plead. You watch. You collect. In every conversation, ask yourself, what do they really want from me? What are they not saying? Where is the contradiction between their words and their behavior? Most people reveal more than they realize, but only if you're not too close to miss it. When emotions are high, intelligence is low. Your vision narrows, your judgment weakens, and you become the puppet of your own impulse. But when you detach, you become immune. It is how rulers manipulate the masses, feed them hope, stir their fear, present an enemy, then stand back. Watch how they move. And from there choose who to crush, who to reward, and who to keep dancing for you. There's a reason the most dangerous men in history rarely spoke more than needed. They let others show their cards. and they acted only when it gave them the maximum leverage. Remember, emotion is a smokescreen. Distance is the torch that burns through it. You've seen it yourself. The person who reacts instantly is always at a disadvantage, but the one who listens silently, responds slowly, and calculates coldly, they are the ones who always win in the end. Why? Because they are not pulled by the moment. They are not inside the chaos. They are above it. You want to master power? Then master detachment. Train yourself to feel less and see more. Do not trust words. Trust patterns. Do not be impressed by emotion. Be guided by clarity. This doesn't mean you don't care. It means you don't rely on caring to make decisions. And that makes you unreadable, unpredictable, unbreakable. So the next time you're tempted to jump into drama, to defend yourself, to explain or prove your worth, stop. Step back, observe. Let the fools run into the fire, while you light your own torch and watch from the edge. Because in war, in politics, the one who sees clearly owns the game. But what happens when perception is paired with absence? When you learn to disappear, not just emotionally but physically. In the next segment, we explore the third secreting, how power expands through controlled absence, and why disappearing at the right time is often the most dominant move you can make. If your presence is constant, your power is predictable. If you are always seen, you are quickly forgotten. The wise ruler understands presence is a weapon, but absence is the sharpening stone. Let me ask you, why do kings retreat to the shadows after victory? Why do conquerors vanish from the crowd before they're crowned? Because power, like value, depends on scarcity. Familiarity breeds comfort. Comfort breeds disregard. And no one fears what they see too often. You may believe showing up constantly proves commitment, but in the eyes of those you wish to rule, it signals desperation. Here he is again, they say. Predictable. Available. Forgettable. Controlled absence creates mystique. It stirs questions in your enemies. It breeds anxiety in your rivals, and curiosity in those who once ignored you. People begin to wondering, where did you go? What are you planning? Are you watching them, judging? Waiting? Their mind starts working for you. Your absence becomes louder than their noise. Consider Alexander the Great. After rapid conquests, he would vanish. Retreat to solitude, not to rest, but to amplify his myth. He allowed stories to ferment in his absence. And when he returned, people no longer saw a man but a legend. What changed? Not his actions, but the space between them. Or study political manipulators like Cardinal Richelieu. He ruled France not from the public square, but from behind closed doors. He would appear only when the game demanded it, just long enough to shift the balance, then vanish again, leaving uncertainty behind. This is the power of calculated disappearance. You may be tempted to post daily, speak constantly, remind people of your presence. But understand, the more they see you, the less they feel your impact. Instead, master the rhythm of presence and withdrawal. Arrive with precision. Leave before you're expected to. In negotiation, this tactic is lethal. Make your offer, then vanish. Say nothing. Let the silence grow sharp. People panic when left alone with their thoughts. In your silence, their imagination becomes your ally. They project power onto you that you haven't even claimed yet. And isn't that the essence of control? To let others construct the image that most unnerves them. Now ask yourself, why are you always trying to explain? To clarify, to be understood. The man obsessed with constant visibility betrays his insecurity. But the one who can walk away, who disappears at will, he signals one thing: I do not need you. And in that gesture, he becomes irresistible. It's the same in war. The most dangerous generals don't show strength constantly. They disappear from the battlefield, only to reappear where the enemy is weakest. Presence is force, but absence is strategy. Understand this. The mind of the crowd is not rational. It's emotional. It responds not to logic, but rhythm. Too much presence, and your power becomes background noise. But just enough absencing, and you become mythic. You haunt their thoughts without lifting a finger. This principle extends to every domain. Business, relationships, influence. Show up too often and they assume they own you. Pull back. Slowly, strategically. And watch how they lean in. How they search for your shadow. How they speak your name even when you say nothing. You become the ghost in their theater. Unseen, but directing the play. But take care. Absence must be controlled. Too much and they forget. Too little and they consume you. You must time your reappearance like a strike. When they least expect you, return, not as you were, but sharper, more composed, more powerful. Let your silence speak first. Then let your presence feel like thunder. In a world obsessed with being seen, the one who chooses when to vanish becomes the master of attention. And remember, people fear what they cannot anticipate. They respect what they cannot access. So ask yourself, are you present because it serves your strategy, or because you fear being forgotten? If it's the second, you've already lost. But if you learn to vanish with purpose, you will control the rhythm of power. Appear like fire, vanish like smoke, and always be one move ahead. But now we must sharpen the next blade. If absence creates fear, then dependence is the enemy of control. In the next segment, we'll uncover how every bond, every favor, every emotional tie can be used against you, unless you sever it first. Power is not given, it is taken. And once taken, it must be protected, not just from enemies, but from attachments. Most men fall not to their rivals, but to their own needness. They confuse connection with strength. They mistake loyalty for leverage. And in doing so, they hand the reins of their life to others, willingly. Tell me, how can you control anything if you cannot even stand alone? Dependence is the hidden chain, soft, subtle, and nearly invisible, until it's pulled. And when it's pulled, you bend, you hesitate, you lose. The powerful man, by contrast, makes himself unholdable. He does not rely on one voice for direction. He does not place his happiness in another's hand. He does not build his kingdom on borrowed favor. He may use others, but he never needs them. Think of rulers who fell from grace, not because they were weak, but because they were dependent. The last emperor of Byzantium, Constantine X, was not defeated solely by the Ottomans. He was already weakened. By begging the Catholic West for aid, he waited, depended, hoped, and when the help never came, he was exposed. Hope is a beautiful word, but in the hands of the dependent, it becomes a noose. In contrast, consider the example of Queen Elizabeth I. She was surrounded by foreign suitors, pressured by Parliament, and even courted by her own advisors. But she married no one, because she knew to tie her power to any man was to have it, and so she ruled alone, feared, respected, not because she had allies, but because she didn't need them. Now ask yourself, who do you need to feel safe? Whose approval keeps you silent? Whose opinion controls your next move? You may call them friend, lover, family, but are they not also handlers of your will? The powerful man allows no one to hold his peace hostage. You see, people don't control you with chains anymore. They do it with guilt, with obligation, with the word loyalty dangled like bait in front of your pride. But loyalty built on dependence is not loyalty. It is debt, and the one in debt obeys. This is why the strong prefer solitude to forced alliances. They choose strategic cooperation, but always retain the ability to walk away. They build connections like bridges, not like cages. And if the bridge collapses, they swim, alone, without panic. Let me be clear. I am not telling you to live without people, but I am telling you, do not let them become your spine. Use them as tools. Test them as liabilities, but never confuse their presence with permanence. Most betrayals don't come from strangers. They come from those you thought you couldn't live without. So practice living without them. Every tie you cannot sever is a weakness in waiting. Every emotional leash is a sword pressed against your own neck. And if you think this is cold, then you still think like a servant. The ruler asks one question above all: what do I control? And if the answer includes someone else's mood, affection, or approval, then the answer is nothing. It is better to be feared than loved, but best of all is to need neither. Build wealth, not to flaunt it, but so you never beg. Build skills, not for applause, but so you never rely on another's favor. Build presence, not for attention, so your absence is noticed more than others' presence combined. In every relationship, keep one hand on the exit, not to leave constantly, but to remind yourself you can. This ability alone changes how you speak, how you think, and how others treat you. You become someone they want, but cannot control. And that is the essence of power. But there is still one card left to master: appearing by choice, acting by timing. When you learn to engage selectively, your every move becomes a calculated strike. In the next segment, we uncover the final weapon: selective engagement as strategic strike. How to enter, influence, and exit without ever losing the upper hand. A sword drawn too often grows dull. A voice heard too frequently begins to fade. Power is not just in what you do, but when, how, and why. This is the final refinement of control: selective engagement. Not constant action, not constant noise, but calculated precision. You see, the powerful man is not addicted to movement. He moves with timing. He speaks when silence is too loud. And he strikes not because he must, but because the opening demands it. Ask yourself, do you enter conversations to wing or because you fear being left out? Do you respond to insults to defend your pride, or because your ego is bleeding? Every unnecessary engagement is a leak in your power, and every restraint tightens your grip on the game. Think of Hannibal, not the fictional monster, but the real general who terrorized Rome. He didn't attack constantly. He studied patterns, waited in the shadows of mountains, crossed the Alps when no one expected him. His genius wasn't in brute force. It was in the timing of his appearances. His enemies never knew when he would strike, and that fear was a weapon more deadly than his army. This is what most men never understand. They think presence equals relevance. They think reacting equals power. But the more you respond, the more predictable you become. The more available you are, the more you can be dismissed. Control demands that you stop dancing to every bell that rings. Let others play the desperate game of constant reaction. Let them post, argue, explain, attack, defend. You wait, because when the time comes, one word from you can outweigh 1,000 from them. But for that word to matter, it must be rare. It must arrive like a sword through fog. Sudden, sharp, and irreversible. This is what separates the sovereign from the slave. The slave responds immediately. The sovereign calculates. Consider the manipulator at the negotiation table. He listens more than he speaks. He lets others reveal themselves, their fears, their wants, their desperation. Then, at the right moment, he names his price. No explanation, no hesitation, and because he waited, it lands like law. You must treat your presence like a limited resource, not because you lack it, but because others must learn to value it. If you argue with fools, you become one. If you correct every insult, you become fragile. If you show up everywhere, you're expected nowhere. Selective engagement teaches people this truth: you are not summoned. You choose. And choice is terrifying to those who are used to obedience. Now, let's speak plainly. There will be moments when people beg for your reaction. They will provoke, flatter, insult, guilt, anything to pull you into their chaos. Do not take the bait. If you respond, make it surgical, short, unemotional, final. Let your absence speak longer than your presence. Let your silence force them to overplay. This is the principle of force multiplication. When one move creates 5 reactions, you are playing the game correctly. And the best part, most people are too emotionally volatile to ever master this. They will rush, react, shall watch, then move with deadly precision. Think of your actions as arrows. You do not shoot endlessly into the dark. You wait until the target stops moving. Then you let one fly, straight through the heart. This is not cruelty. It is economy. The economy of power. The strategist does not burn energy explaining. He does not fight where nothing is to be gained. He engages only where victory is likely, cost is minimal, and impact is lasting. This is how wars are won without armies, how legacies are built without noise, how empires rise in silence, then reveal themselves with a single, devastating move. And so I leave you with this: do not act often. Act decisively. Do not engage to be seen. Engage to be remembered. Because the world forgets those who show up every day, but it never forgets the one who appeared once and changed everything. Now the foundation is set, but power, true power, must evolve. What if the self you've built isn't just strategic, but transcendent? In the final convergence, we explore the last transformation, becoming your transpersonal self. The version of you that no longer plays the game but designs it. Control is never taken by force alone. The most complete form of domination is when they follow you willingly, without ever realizing they've been led. You don't shout, you imply. You don't demand. You withdraw. You don't show your hand. You let their own desires move the pieces for you. This is how the powerful rule, not with chains, but with silence. Not with presence, but with precision. They engage just enough to make the world dance. So ask yourself, are you shaping the world, or being shaped by it? If this opened your eyes, leave a comment. Let your thoughts be measured. Subscribe for deeper tactics, darker truths, and the psychology of silent power. And share this video. Not with everyone, only with those cunning enough to understand it. Because the rest, they're meant to be ruled.